Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. It is such a pleasure to be back here with the forum. I just want to thank our organizers. You know, we at Bank of America have been part of this South Florida phenomenon since its inception, back when it was in Palm Beach County. So that's why I'm here, and that's why the president from Palm Beach County at Bank of America is here. But I want to thank Nick and his parents, Gilles and Marie. They have been amazing leaders and just conveners of some of the best conversations and dialogue that we can have across the globe. So thank you for that. I'm also very intrigued and very excited to moderate this panel this afternoon because, as we all read all the time, $84 trillion in investable assets are going to be transferring between now and 2045. It's already begun with the boomers retiring. We have a workforce with 5 generations now. It's quite fascinating. And so it is just an honor and privilege to be moderating this very distinguished panel today. I'm going to introduce them to you one by one, and please hold your applause until all of them are on the stage. So let's start with Wayne Huizenga III, the Vice President, Huizenga Holdings, and President and Founder of Southway Capital. Following him is Jose Batres Gonzalez, CEO of BM Capital, founder of Energy Resources Capital, and board member of BG Capital. We have Núria Vilanova, founder and president of Atrevia, and president of the Business Council Alliance for Ibero-America. And last but certainly not least, Jen O'Neill, vice president of EPIQ Capital Group. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage. It's been a lot of fun getting to know these 4 distinguished panelists, but I'm going to start off by asking each of them to just spend a minute or two talking to us a little bit about yourself and why you're here.
Yeah, well, it's a real pleasure to be here. My name is Wayne Huizenga. I have the distinct pleasure of being a next-generation family office member with my father, so I spend about a third of my time up at our family office. I do a lot of real estate management with him, and then we also manage a diverse pool of a fund-to-funds management system we have in-house. And then beyond that, I work at Southway Capital with my partner, Tom Rapp, and we manage a lower middle market healthcare private equity strategy.
Jose?
My name is Jose Batres, former VP of Asset Allocations of BG Holdings, a third-generation family office. Before that, I was a former CEO of Energy Resources Capital, a corporation generating energy through hydroelectric power plants in Central America. So really happy to be here and share this panel with these beautiful people here. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Núria?
Hi. I am a founder of a company, Atrevia, and I started this company with my mother. We started together working in the communication and corporate and public affairs sector. We started the company in Spain, and now we are in 15 countries. Before last week, 16 this week, because the last week we bought a company in Uruguay. And we are a family business, but also we have a lot of clients in family business, and I wrote a book about family business and the opportunities and also the issues in this area. No? Very interested in this area. Thank you to be here, and my recognition to Carlos, a tremendous motor every time. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jen?
Hi, I'm Jen O'Neill. Thank you for having me here. I am a Vice President and Senior Portfolio Manager with EPIQ Capital Group. We are a multifamily office overseeing the financial lives of about 100 families. Our founder, Chad Boding, was a co-founder of Iconic, which some of you may have heard of in San Francisco, and he broke out 5 years ago to form EPIQ. So we have about $6 billion AUM, and our clients hold about $40 billion of their company stock, whether that's private or public, that will diversify over time. So our core business is obviously the investment side, but we do everything else for the family offices that touches their financial life in any capacity.
Great, thank you. Well, let's get started. So we have heard that managing a family office is not a tale of two cities, but a tale of very complicated assets. And we have a couple of our panelists here are third generation, so they have seen it all, but of course, third generation. It's not an easy place to be pivoting to something different, something new. So, Wayne, I'm going to pitch the first question to you. So, your family, waste management, major league sports, entertainment, you name it. But we never saw them in the area of capital markets or private equity. Can you talk a little bit about how did that happen? Your story.
Yeah, so it was a very interesting journey for me growing up with my family and seeing all the different things that we've done and the great people I got to learn from. And the challenge that was set to me before I went to college was not to get great grades, but to meet great people. So my pop sent me there with the idea of let's go find smart people that we can do business with. Let's go find great guys with new ideas and great businesses out there. And I was lucky enough to get involved with a great group of guys out there that had some fantastic ideas. And as I came out and spent years with my family and we sold our last big operating company, I called a few of them up and basically asked if we could go into business together, and they all accepted. And we built Southway Capital around the idea of there's fantastic assets out there that are overlooked because they're too small for the larger capital markets to go and work on. And we wanted to go and get exposure in those markets. And we were able to bring some fantastic exposure to the family office in the lower middle market space and build up a pretty killer team of guys, and kind of went from there. But certainly was a big challenge. The family didn't have any formal fund experience, so we built all of it out of the ground and started slow, and it took us a couple of years, but we had a pretty awesome group of guys behind us that were willing to answer any of the dumb questions we had at the time, so it made it pretty easy.
So I know that you employed a lot of innovations and new creative ideas. Can you talk a little bit about that? How did that work into the new family office structure?
Yeah, the same group of guys from college, actually, a lot of their backgrounds were in financial markets, whether their family were running RIAs or they had private equity experience. So we were able to sit down and talk with a couple of guys that specialize in the niche application of insurance, specifically private placement life insurance, and build a pretty killer model for the family office to go in and set up basically 9 policies of PPLI to set the next generation on track of not having to have exposure to income tax, capital gains tax, or estate tax, and build a long-term portfolio where we could go, hey, private credit's a great asset, but no one likes it because you have to pay 50% in taxes. So if we can get that exposure and not pay taxes, the family's more than happy to do that. So we spent the first 2 years really leaning into that structure, and that was certainly a challenge. I got home from college and told my pop about it, and I remember him going, you want to talk about insurance? I hate those insurance guys. They're the worst. Nobody wants to talk about insurance. Your friends are going to see you across the street, and they're going to cross the street so you don't have to talk to them. And I'm like, that might be true, Pop, but I'll tell them they don't have to pay taxes on their investments. And he's like, you might get somewhere with that one. So we had some good adoption of the family office after about 6 or 7 of those hard conversations, and now we run most of our liquid portfolio through that structure, and we really, really enjoy it as a family office. And our CFO loves it because there's no K1s.
That's an interesting perspective. No K1s. All right. Jose, you too, third generation from rum making, and your grandfather, to hydroelectric plants, to medical devices, real estate, runs the gamut. So talk to us a little bit about something that probably no one wants to hear about, or everyone wants to hear about, but nobody really wants to talk about, is let's get under the covers. What's it like in terms of governance in a family office, especially with 3 generations? And tell us what no one else will tell us.
I got the question. Yeah, no, corporate governance, important topic in family offices. I think you describe it very well. Nobody wants to talk about it, but it's really important to get the bylaws in order. I think it's really important to get the governance of the family office established before you getting into the market, right? And in order to get the corporate governance for family office well stabilized, I think there are 3 important points worth mention, right? One is the vision, long-term vision, right? the famous X factor comes to place, right? The famous X factor of if you're a second generation family office and you're 4, then the 4X in order to have the same wealth as the first generation. And if you're a third generation and you're 9, so it's a 3X, right? So once you establish the long-term vision of the family office, which is the easy part, I think, you go down to the corporate governance, right? Who and why, right? Nobody wants to talk about it, but it's important to realize that if you have well organized that, then everything will come into place, right? The famous saying of don't hate the player, hate the game, right? But you need to create the rules of the game, right? So any family office is unique. It's its own world, has its own managing of things, but there's no family office the same as other. So once you get those corporate governance bylaws in place, I think you have the pillars to have the best team and how you manage the family office, and everybody has an important role, right? Either if you start with bylaws of being out of the market, and you cannot work in a family office before you have 7 years, 5 years. In our case, it's like 7 years. You need to be out, And regarding your performance, you're gonna see how if you're a candidate or not, and the level of education and all that. But at the end, I think many ways of doing it, but the most important thing is to have the rules, the bylaws together, right? And once you have them, then you can start then looking for strategies and how to accomplish the long-term vision that you establish as a family office. And then for me, I think it's really important to mention that you have to eliminate every possible point of conflict, future point of conflict, right? You have to eliminate that. Because in a family office, you have a lot of confidence. You're not dealing with partners, you're dealing with family, right? So that's good, but it's also gets more complicated sometimes. One of those matters, I think, it's recreational assets. I think Jen can tell us about that in her experience of managing a lot of family office. But recreational assets, statistically, it's more than 50% of how the problems on family office are start because they don't have it the bylaws well defined, and at the end there are small things, but they have to be really well established in order so they don't create a problem, right?
So he's talking, and I don't know about you, but it reminds me of like growing up at home where mom and dad sort of set up the rules and this is how good governance works and this is how it works, but everybody didn't always agree, right? So we're going to come back. So I want you to think about an example of when there was disagreement, and Wayne is nodding, so I know it's true. So it's not always perfect, and everyone just doesn't always follow the rules. So how you handle that is going to be really important. So think about that. I'm going to come back and ask you. So Núria, I'm going to come to you and ask you, you've written a lot about artificial intelligence. You're in 15 countries. You have over 400 employees. Can you talk a little bit about how you are using artificial intelligence? You've written a lot about it when it comes to 5 generations. So how do you actually implement that in a workplace with 5 different generations?
I think this is a very special moment in the world. I know more the Ibero-American region, but I think it's in the world. No, this is a moment where the people is angry with the situation, and they look to the governments and they feel frustrated because the answer about the problems that is not in the politics, that is not in the government, no? And in this situation, the family business has an advantage, a good position, because people trust people. And in front of a family business, there is always a family and persons. And it's easy to build a relationship of trust with the people and the society. But at the same time, the people are looking, the society, the people with less resources and more problems and difficult situations, and we are talking, when we are talking about difficult situations, it's truly difficult. That means not have the option to have 3 meals at the day, or the exposition in the violence, or not possibility to have a job, no? And that means that that put more pressure for to the families and the family business. In the other way, there is other pressure inside in the companies. It's the next generation, no? The next generation asks to the family business to do something more for the society, no? And in the other way, there is also, and perhaps I prefer to focus in the next round of questions, the succession is coming more and more difficult. But I think this other reflection, no? That means there is a great opportunity because they can build trust to the society, but there is also a lot of pressure. And the family business needs to think and to define an strategy. A lot of them work in purpose and about the social responsibility, but sometimes it's a nice sentence, very nice, but not truly one definition to take the decisions and to manage the company with the purpose. No, we need to do and step more and to create a purpose of the family companies very involved in the strategy and the relation and the decisions. If we are able to do that, we can have an amazing advantage because the people, the politics, the stakeholders, they are looking for something more. All the world is looking for something more, no? And we can be an answer, but we need to take the decision and to do something more than we are doing now in general.
Thank you. So I heard a couple things in there, Jen. I'm going to ask you, you have looked at this from inside out, over 100 different companies. Everyone else on the stage has been managing, a single family office. You've had the privilege of seeing it inside out. So what is important about surrounding the conversations that happen at the table with these family offices, especially with multiple generations, and specifically with the innovations that have been before us lately?
Yeah, sure. So, at EPIQ, obviously, after we aggregate and build a family's balance sheet to make sure we understand where all their holdings are, the next step is absolutely the trust and estate planning, because it's not a mere administrative task. It's truly the lifeblood of a family office. We find it important to sit down with all the members of the family so that everybody can agree upon their goals, the legacy they want to leave, the impact they want to make. And, those might be different for each person, but if we can aggregate, a family goal and set up the structure around the trust and estate planning to speak to that, it really it holds a family together. It can hold a family together for generations, and it really leaves the legacy and impact that they want to leave. And it's very important that each individual in that family be heard. Your family, your money can go 4 places: you, charity, your descendants, and the government. So obviously we want to, mitigate the government side, but among that, we want the family to agree upon those other 3 pieces and how that's going to, be passed down through generations. So that piece is a first starting block with us, and then, we obviously bring in advisory and good partners around the specifics around the philanthropy piece, and also the impact investing. And, we actually work with a third-party company that comes in and evaluates all of our family's investments, whether they're through a fund or something not directed by us, to make sure that those funds aren't investing in something that goes against their ethics and their impact. So we really want to make sure that the family is investing towards their legacy, planning towards their legacy, and that all the family members are involved.
That's great. So are there disagreements in the on the generational side? And can you maybe talk a little bit about that, what you've seen in terms of, Gen Z, Gen Y? I don't even know if Gen Z is at the table yet, but let's just say Gen Y, X, and the boomers and traditionalists. Can you talk a little bit about that dynamic?
So one of the struggles we often face is that the wealth generator, the parents, the mother, the father, whomever, doesn't necessarily want to share their financial condition with the next generation. And sometimes they're too young, and that's understandable. But as these children get older, we really try to advise these families that it really behooves everyone for the family to understand the full picture. It doesn't mean they have to get their hands on the wealth at a certain period of time, but to really understand where the wealth is and what that wealth generating generation wants that wealth to, how it wants to be used, so that the next generation can carry that forward and add their own spin. But that's definitely a challenge we face a lot, not as much with our first generation wealth clients, but more with the multi-generational wealth, kind of the, the baby boomer age patriarchs and matriarchs. And then, beneath that, there's always going to be disagreements about where money's invested and where what charities are going to receive this. But we work really hard to create different vehicles so that each family member can have their say in a certain category of investments or a certain area of giving. But it's a really important thing to encourage that wealth generating generation to share information with the rest of the family. You want to avoid probate. You want to avoid fighting once they've passed. So there's a lot of psychology we have to leverage in making that happen.
Great advice. So let's see how it has been put into practice. So let me come back to Wayne for a minute. Wayne, can you describe maybe, if you don't mind sharing with us in the audience here, what's it like being at the table, and you're Gen Y? Millennial. Okay. Sorry, maybe we weren't supposed to get into age. We'll stay away from that topic. But okay, Gen Y. So talk about how you receive that information and how the dynamics work at the table. And, I know with my own children, it's always about technology. And, I don't always receive it well. So can you just describe the dynamics with your family office?
Yeah, I think it's, like we've been saying, it's the earlier you start, the better off. I was blessed. My dad started when I was a kid. I was 15 years old, and we get to go spend time in the office. And everything is starting to push towards technology. And as we dig deeper and deeper into all the little places that we have money invested or the ways that money transfers, technology plays a massive role in how we're starting to visualize those things and update those systems. But I'd say, from the perspective of growing up as a third generation, it's overwhelming to start. And once you start to realize how much is there and how many different components are in that whole structure, my big focus started switching to, well, if I have these questions, my siblings and my cousins certainly have them as well. So how do we get, as a family, all of us together at a table in a place where we can ask these questions that to us seem really, really dumb, but might actually be good input for the family office or might lead us to make a change in portfolio construction. And for us, we set out a monthly cadence where I get with my siblings and have conversations, and then a semi-annual cadence where we sit down with the whole family office and I get to pitch up some of these harder questions for my siblings and cousins to ask and go, hey, here's what everyone's thinking, here's what we're seeing, is there a better way to do this? Or so so-and-so wants to go into this part of the world and do X and Y and Z type business, or give money to this charity, and what's the best way for us to start doing those kind of things and make a priority for the family to focus on the next generation and go, here's the things that we see, here's the things that we value and that we want. How do we start to build those in so that one day we don't wake up and go, I've never had any conversation about this and I have no clue how to do it.
Great advice. Jose, how do you keep somebody from saying, you know, the trade-off, hydroelectric plants, or I want to, you know, buy a new yacht? I mean, those trade-offs, you know, recreation versus businesses with return. Can you describe maybe an example of where that governance that you described earlier really has to come into play?
Yeah, great question, Fab. I think all regards of what I mentioned before about having the vision established, right? Because once you get the rules established, I think it's easier to play the game, right? So if you have a long-term vision of doing the famous X factor and you have a goal to do it, then I think it all revolves around that, right? As the family members who are running the family office, they have to have the famous KPIs in mind, right? At the end, you are comparing the performance to the market, and the market is wide, big, so either it's Wayne, her brother, or some other guy, right? So if you manage to get a hold of that in the family office, then I think you focus on what's real going to create value, because that's the most important thing. And important to have the rules really well established, because once you get it and you start getting the KPIs and the performance, you will get it. So those decisions, I think, that they come really easy if you have the structure well established, right?
You've said that a couple of times, and I wondered who was around the table that was not in the family. You know, Jen talked about sort of advisors and getting people around the table. So who was at the table helping you set those rules? Because you said, you know, once you have a vision, once you have the rules set, who's creating the vision, who's setting the rules, and is anybody dissenting along the way? What professionals are around the table when you're in that early stage?
You need to have them.
You need?
Yeah, you need to have them. I have the honor to have one here with us. But yes, at the end, it makes it easier, right? It's like if you go with your brothers or your cousins, and there's a professional in some area, then just the whole energy changes, right? Sometimes it's too good or too bad, but you need that, right? Especially in a family office. So that's an important matter. I think everybody can agree that having external advisory boards in a family office gives you another energy to start trying to be more professional and getting to your vision more easy. Because when you're dealing with family, you're dealing with a lot of trust, a lot of confidence, right? So they're not your partners; they're your partners and your family, right? So when you get it's important. The advisory board in a family office, I think it's crucial. So they will give you the guidance that they will see it really cold, right? The way you need to see it, right?
Very good. Núria, 15 countries. Your mother's 16 countries. Sorry, 16 countries.
After last week, we voted in Uruguay.
Congratulations. 16 countries. Not easy tax management for tax efficiencies, as Wayne talked about. Your mother started the business. You mentioned earlier philanthropic activities and the expectations. And when you're in 16 countries, those expectations, can you describe what that looks like and how you work with your advisors in your family office around determining what is the right, philanthropic solution and how you go about making those decisions? Can you talk about that?
Well, we have, it's about governance and it's about team, no? As you explained before. In our case, we have a board for the analysis of the business and strategy, but we have an amazing team and amazing management. No, that's extremely important because we work in communication, we work in reputation, in digital reputation, in marketing and advertising. We work in public affairs, in relationships with the government. We try to anticipate what is coming in the societies. We work in the studies of the behavior and the market, but we work a lot about crossroads and anticipations, and we work in sustainability. And these areas, they are changing an amazing speed. It's changing a lot, and they have an amazing impact in the companies and the society. Try to remember 10 years before, everyone who's here at this room, try to remember, if you can, remember with a president of a company talking about communication. Or not one day, every day, talking about communication, or talking about public affairs, or talking about the connection. Try to remember the presidents of the biggest companies, if they are 10 years ago, all of them in Twitter, or X now, or in Instagram, or writing in LinkedIn. Now, when you ask why they spend so many time in social networks, no one say that they have a lot of time and they like it. No, they say they need to do that to be in touch in the team, to be in touch with the clients, to be in touch in the society. The communication is now in the center of the decisions of the presidents of the companies, who spend, of course, a lot of time talking about politics and communication, no? But this is other matter, no? And to do that, we need to have the best people. And to work in our area, for example, we have one of the world West expert in geostrategy, because today, economy is about geostrategy and about security. We have one of the biggest or the more experts in sustainability, because the relationship with governments and the people is about sustainability. We need to have a lot of specific people working not in the communication today, not in the public affairs of today, or IE intelligence, artificial intelligence, working in that for tomorrow, what we need to start now. No? In our case, governance is truly important, but also it's most important perhaps spend a lot of time looking for the best people in each area, and to have a very open mind about what is communication and public affairs. And now communication and public affairs is understanding the society. And for that, we need very different people, like anthropologists, for example.
Anthropologists? Wow. That's very interesting. Jen, I want to keep that conversation going around the talent you need to surround yourself with as these decisions are happening. So Núria covered the public affairs and marketing, social media, all of that swirl that goes on today. Can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you've seen in the companies that you've advised around those specific areas and bringing that together? Like,
In the companies that our families own,
within the family office, if there's a, let's say a challenge or disagreement on the use of social media or, technology or Instagram and all the other.
well, I mean, we as a company don't use any social media as a rule. That I can tell you for sure. We really don't talk to our families much about how they're using social media. It hasn't really come up. But we as a firm use a ton of technology because we have to be able to scale. We have 100 families now and we're continuing to grow. So we use a lot of technology platforms, but outside of LinkedIn, we are really off of social media, and we advise our families to stay off as much as possible, but it's not really something that comes to the table with us.
And what about the ESG or the social or philanthropic side? How do you engage with your family offices around that?
Sure. Well, first we try to decide, what kind of structure to set up, which depends a lot on how much transparency and control they want to have over their philanthropic giving. If you have a foundation, you have full control, but there's a lot of compliance, administration, tax filing. You can do a donor advised fund, or you can just do direct giving. So once we decide that around the way in which they give, we bring in, like I said, we're not the experts in everything, but we try to bring in the best third-party experts. So we will bring in experts that will analyze the ESG impact of their investments and maybe their investments and their charitable giving, and maybe what sort of the charities they're looking to give to, and are they truly making an impact that fits that family's goals and ethics. And we, like I said, we bring in companies that analyze the impact side. We bring in third-party partners that can structure all those vehicles and also can help run them if that family likes. But yeah, I mean, the impact of giving is extremely important to the families we work with. It's part of their legacy. It's part of what they're passing on to the next generation. So we bring in software, like if they want to do donor advised funds, we work with Fidelity Charitable. So we have all these outsourced platforms that we work with to make sure that we're directing the family towards the kind of giving they want and the way they want, and to make sure it fits their goals.
Very good. So I want to shift back for a minute because I've given everybody time to think about this. I want to know if you can share a problem within your family office that you've come across where there's been disagreement, and then more importantly, how was it resolved? If you can just share something about that. And Jen, yours can be anything you've observed when we get to you, okay? Wayne, do you want to start?
Yeah, happy to. I mean, we haven't had many massive roadblocks in our family where we've come to, big disagreements. It's always interesting when we're discussing some of the larger assets. My siblings and I are lucky to have input with my papa when it comes to selling or buying some of the larger holdings that we've had. And I think the worst ones that we've had is when we have assets that we love, where we've built teams or we've grown in. Our last asset we sold, Radovich Super Yacht Marina in West Palm, I cut my teeth there and grew to be friends with a lot of the people in the company. And when it came time to sell, I know internally it was a fantastic exit for the family, but myself and my sister had qualms about leaving that team and not being with those people anymore. And, being able to sit with the family and have the conversation and at least voice it out and go, hey, it's something that we love. It's a business that we've built that my pop loved, and that at the end of the day, I don't think any of us really wanted to sell, but when the finances come in and we can have a developed conversation around that, it made a lot of sense for the family to go and do different things at the time. So being able to have an open conversation, not only about the finances, but about the emotional side of whatever the problem is, and not get heated and not have people walk away, I think is the key in that kind of situation. But been lucky that my siblings and I all tend to get along for the most part.
That's great. And I understand that. So the emotional divestiture was more meaningful than the financial divestiture in that case. And that makes a lot of sense, because when you build a great brand, you really don't want to let it go. So very understandable. Jose, can you share an example?
Yeah, I like Wayne said, I can share a lot of examples. We can keep out all afternoon hearing about my examples. I think that's common in a family office.
Just one good one, real good one.
A good one. No, I think it's not about a particular one. I think it's how fast you resolve it, right? What do you do to resolve that issue? Because again, family office, you had a lot of confidence. You can, sometimes you have more opinions than a regular partnership, right? So at the end, you go to the black book, right? The famous saying, "Don't hate the player, hate the game." That's what I was referring when we began this panel. As soon as you have the investment committee figure out, the family council committee figure out, and you are focusing on creating wealth and trying to get your vision accomplished, I think then you go back and you just see it, and then it's really easy to get it resolved, right? Because as Wayne said, you will get emotional opinions, business opinion, then you come with a third party, the professionals that they don't give, they don't take into consideration the emotional part, which I think is important, but sometimes don't. So when you have them all and you have your strategic plan, then it's easier to resolve, right? Because in a family office, either a small thing or a big thing can become a problem, and again, the most important thing is to have the pillars and the bylaws really well established so you can resolve them as quick as possible, right?
Yeah, I think that's very, very helpful. The more organized, the more rules are established up front. When something does come up, it's not about
and that's
how
the weird
how
conversation,
fast.
right? How to get the rules in order, and how to get the bylaws, and that's the weird conversation. That's the uncomfortable conversation. But you need to have it, and once you have it, it will be easier, right?
Núria, do you have an example for us?
I sorry, but I lost my mind thinking about the necessity of to be in communication with the people, if I can return to that, no? But for example, one of the biggest companies in Spain is the Santander Bank, who is also in States, no? And the president, Anna, say they needs to be in social media to communicate with their own team, because if not, they are not able to understand why they do what they do, no? In Mexico, the most important businessman is Carlos Slim, and Carlos Slim Jr. It's all time also in social media, because or Andrónico Luksic, who is the biggest businessman in Chile, no? Why they do that? Why they spend the time with that? No, I think there is a special moment. Usually, I say the power people, the poverty is local, but the rich income of the companies is global. And for that, there is more difference, because the poverty, it's the income is so little in each country, but the figure of incomes of these companies in these countries, they are bigger and bigger, because they are not only in one market, Colombia or Spain or the States, they are global ones, no? And that means the difference is growing, no? And we don't lose the connection. We need to explain what we are doing, because if not, the difference could create zero empathy between the people in most difficult situation and the other ones. And the other ones need to explain what they are doing for the people, how they are involved. I think the society has to us not to explain the characteristic of our products or our service. They need to understand why we believe or what we think, no? And we need to dedicate time with that. And to me, reputation, communication is that, no? To explain not only what we do, also what we think or what we believe. We have Carlos Slim the last week in Spain, and they say China's sentence, it's about if left aroma, I don't remember the name of a smell, in the hands of the people who brings rosas. Rosas is a flower, rosas. That means if you do something for the other people, the best part of you do, the smell, will remain in you. We are better person if we do something for the other ones in relation of the China's sentence.
I think that's a very important aspect of, the wealth gap that we've got to continue to address, and family offices have to deal with that, right? As there's more job creation, there's more wealth generation, which, Jen will tell you, we want you to keep, but yet you have to always keep your mind on the disparities and how do you translate that in that aroma that you described, right? I like that. That's better than just saying, some other term, that aroma, so that people can actually embrace what you're doing in society. So very, very good. Jen, I'm going to ask you, what is one of the most complicated disagreements you've seen at the table in the companies you advise, the offices you advise?
I'm not sure if it's the most complicated, but it's what I see the most often, which is spending. So, this is a not daily, but a frequent conversation among the families. Son wants to buy a ranch. Father says, no way, not, we can't afford it, not a good use of funds. Sister wants to buy a plane. The rest of the family says, no way. So again, back to the psychology and bring the family together to make educated decisions. So while we're always maintaining their, 5-year, 10-year cash flow projections, what I'll do is I'll build a model that says, okay, in these next 5 years, if you throw this purchase of this asset into your cash flow mix, what's that going to mean when we include all of your capital calls and your regular income and your future spending in an up market, a mid market, and a down market? So they can see how it's going to affect their cash flow. They can see if there's any tax implications, and then they can sit down as a family and make an educated decision. I think it might not it might not create the answer, but at least the family's sitting down and seeing real numbers on real paper that says, this is how this decision is going to impact our core estate. And that's been a great way for us to mitigate those kinds of disagreements.
That's excellent. Well, I know the time has flown. I just want to say I've learned a lot listening to these folks up here. I think we can see that you can be a third generation in a family office and come in with a brilliant new idea that no one has done before in the past 2 generations and actually find your way through that using innovations and tax efficiencies. We also heard that you got to have good governance, a vision and rules that everybody's got to play by. Not easy, but solve problems quickly. And if you have those, you can do that. I also heard, tremendous amount of how important communication is, how important communication in the social media platforms are, how important it is when you're dealing with governments as well as, maybe low to moderate income communities that you serve and everything in between. So brilliant communication strategy, and then being surrounded by professionals and subject matter experts that really understand the dynamics at the table when you're running a family office. I think that is the future that I heard, these 5 generations. And I think we don't have all 5. You count me, we've got all 5, well, 4 at least represented here on the stage, so we all get it. So with that, I just want to thank the amazing panelists. They've been generous with their time, generous with their thoughts. And I know it's not easy kind of boiling down a family office's operations into, 50 minutes or so. But I want to thank each and every one of you. On behalf of my colleagues at the Private Bank and Global Commercial Bank at Bank of America, we want to thank all of you, those of you that are with us that are clients, and those of you that are yet to be clients. We want to just thank you for being here and for listening in and leaning into this wonderful, distinguished panel. Thank you so much. Join me in thanking our panelists.